Our mining camp was buried deep in the Rockies, like a forgotten stain in the nameless valley. A few dozen workers, a freezing creek, and the black mouth of Tunnel 9 cutting straight into the mountain. Life there wasn't measured in weeks or months. It was measured in shifts. 12 hours underground, surrounded by damp stone and darkness. 12 hours asleep in a narrow bunk, while the heater rattled against the walls, then back down again. I worked days. My best friend Ethan worked nights. We'd come there together after trade school, stupid enough to believe hard work in the mountains would make us rich someday. That illusion didn't survive the first winter. After that, all that remained was the endless ringing of drills inside your skull, and the feeling that the mountains were pressing down on your shoulders even under open sky. The shift people later called the Cursed Run started like any other. Foreman Marcus gathered the crew and led them into the tunnel. As they disappeared into the darkness, Ethan glanced back at me and grinned his crooked grin. "Hang in there, Luke. If this haul's good, we're getting drunk tomorrow." I didn't know it would be the last time I ever saw that smile. They never came back out. Radio contact with the lower shaft suddenly died. Management whispered about a collapse, but old Walter, the night watchman, only spat into the snow. "The mountain took 'em," he muttered. "No shaking, no cave-in, just swallowed 'em." For 3 days the camp drowned in silence. Rescue teams searched the tunnels over and over. Nothing. No debris. No bodies. It was as if 10 men had simply dissolved inside the mountain. Then, on the third night, when nobody believed anymore, the lift cage came back up, the gate screeched open, and they stepped out. All 10 of them, swaying slightly, exhausted, eyes empty. They were taken straight to the medical cabin. I rushed toward Ethan, but when he looked at me, it was like staring into the eyes of a stranger. "Working," he answered, in a dull, lifeless voice. That was all he said. The first strange thing happened immediately. When the medic removed Marcus's hard hat, snow spilled out from underneath it. Dry snow, bright white, crunching against the floorboards. Snow from nearly a mile underground. I looked at Walter. The old man stared at the black stains covering their jackets and whispered, "That ain't dirt. That's black frost. The mountain marked them." Later, in the mess hall, the men were served hot stew. Not one of them touched it. Instead, one of the miners opened a storage crate, pulled out a frozen slab of raw goat meat, and began eating it uncooked. The others followed. The sound was unbearable. Wet tearing, crunching, like dogs chewing through bone. After that, management moved them into a separate bunkhouse. At night, I'd see them through the window, gathered shoulder to shoulder in the center of the room, standing perfectly still together, like one massive living shadow. Walter stopped beside me one night and quietly said, "The mountain doesn't return people. It sends back whatever it wants. Something old, something Chijoy wearing human skin." A week later, the company decided to run an experiment. They wanted Marcus to lead another team underground. 2 fresh workers from Denver were assigned to go with him. The moment I heard it, I knew those men were already dead. Walter and I stood near the tunnel entrance as the crew prepared to descend. Marcus looked almost happy. He stared into the black opening like a man looking at home. "You're not going back in there," Walter said, stepping into his path. "That's company business," barked the supervisor from the city. "No," Walter replied. "That's the front door to hell." Marcus smiled. For a second, his teeth looked too sharp. Too many. He placed a hand on one of the young worker's shoulders. then suddenly turned and looked directly at me. And for one horrifying instant, I saw Ethan inside his eyes. Not just Ethan, all of them. All 10 men trapped somewhere deep behind that face. His pupils became windows. I saw a frozen cavern lit by black crystal ice, and tiny human figures wandering through it in silence. Then Marcus spoke, but the voice that came out belonged to Ethan. "Luke, don't, please. The snow falls upward down there." I ran for the emergency controls. Walter simply nodded. "Forgive us, boys." I pulled the lever. The mountain roared. Stone and ice thundered downward, sealing Tunnel 9 forever. They put us on trial afterward. We got suspended sentences. The mine was shut down. Within a year, the camp was abandoned. I left by helicopter, watching the white mountain peaks disappear below me. My hands looked normal, human, but I knew the truth. There were no monsters trapped beneath that mountain. There were 10 men buried deep inside Chiji bodies, wandering endless crystal halls where snow falls upward, waiting for someone foolish enough to open the way again. Deep in a remote stretch of the northern mountain range, there are places where no road really leads and no human presence feels permanent. The kind of wilderness that feels untouched, ancient, and completely indifferent to people. My friend Roman and I went there together. He works as a wildlife ranger, a hardened man shaped by years of harsh winters and sunburned summers, the kind of person who trusts instincts more than words. We weren't there for hunting. We came for silence itself, for that rare kind of isolation where even your own thoughts feel too loud. We drove in using an old off-road truck until the terrain became impossible, leaving it at a ranger outpost. From there we continued on foot with heavy backpacks and 2 rifles, a double-barrel shotgun and a bolt-action hunting rifle. We followed faint animal trails until dusk, eventually reaching a river cutting through a narrow stone gorge. The water rushed violently between massive rocks, as if the entire valley was still forming itself. We found a small campsite pressed against an enormous boulder, at least 10 feet tall. Behind it, the river roared through the stones. There was no sign of civilization anywhere. Nothing but rock, water, and forest. We set up camp, lit a fire, and as soon as the sun slipped behind the ridgeline, darkness fell instantly, thick and total, like something physical. We ate quickly, drank a little to keep warm, and sat by the fire. The boulder loomed behind us, the river in front. The fire created a small, fragile circle of light, and beyond it, the forest felt completely alive in a way we couldn't see. We even joked a little, tried to relax, and then everything stopped. It was like the world shut off. No wind, no insects, no distant movement, only the fire and the river. We both went silent at the same time. Roman slowly lifted his head. I saw that familiar expression in his eyes, the one hunters get when something in nature stops making sense. And then, in the darkness ahead, about 100 feet away, footsteps appeared. Heavy, deep, massive. We froze. I whispered, "Light, there." Roman grabbed the flashlight and turned it on. The beam cut through the dark, revealing only stone, trees, and empty space. I already had my rifle in my hands, and then the footsteps stopped, only to turn into running. The running started from different directions. Along the riverbed, something began circling us. Left, right, ahead, behind the river again. It moved in a perfect loop around our camp, never closing in, never backing away. It didn't feel like an animal. It felt intentional. The stones under it exploded into chaotic noise, heavy impacts, scraping, collisions, like something enormous was sprinting over them without hesitation. Roman kept whispering, "Nothing, nothing there." We threw more wood into the fire. The flames rose higher, but still there was nothing to see, only shifting shadows. We stood back to back against the boulder, rifles raised, scanning every direction at once. Time stopped meaning anything. And then, it all suddenly stopped. Silence returned, but it wasn't normal silence anymore. It felt like something was still there, waiting. Some kind of mountain thing, Roman muttered. If we had to shoot it, no one could ever prove it existed anyway. We never found an explanation. Not animal behavior, not human behavior. Something too large, too fast, and too aware. We stayed awake the entire night, taking turns watching the dark. Sleep was impossible. The feeling of being observed never left us until morning. At dawn, we found something near the campsite, a pit, too precise to be natural. It looked like an old well, roughly 6 feet wide and several feet deep, lined with dark, rotting wooden beams. Whoever built it had put enormous effort into it, as if carving something into the mountain itself. Roman stared at it for a long time. Some kind of burial site. Maybe, he said quietly. We never understood what it was. Years have passed, but that night never left me. It wasn't just fear. It felt like we had stepped into a place that follows different rules. Something older than logic, older than understanding. And I know this now. There are places in the mountains where you simply should not stop, because something may come out of the dark, and you will never know what it was.